Our next session is a book launch. The title of the book is Socio-cultural Values of Historic Residential Houses of Zanzibar Stone Town, and it is authored, or partly authored, by the late Mwanahamis Hamad Nassor. The book was co-edited by Professor Abdul and Professor Janet Marion Purdy, who's a Mellon Postdoctoral Curatorial Fellow at the Art Institute of Chicago. I would like now to invite Professor Abdul to the podium.
By now you must be. Maybe you are familiar with me. I'm always disorganized. And I have to admit that now. So the notes that I had written to use today, I can't find them now. But that is okay. I don't really have too much to say today. I will tell a story that is both sad and very happy. And it's very, very happily. I happened to be walking in the narrow streets of Zanzibar, and some of you have not walked in the streets of Zanzibar yet, the visitors. And so if people want to go for these narrow streets for me to show, I'm prepared to take you today after we finish here. Anyway, I was walking in typical narrow Zanzibar streets, and suddenly somebody from behind called out, "Professor Sharif." I turned immediately. I said, "Yes, I'm Professor Sharif. What can I do for you?" And he said, "Can we sit and talk?" And I said, "Of course, this is Zanzibar." We looked at the first baraza, the bench outside every house, and we sat there, right there, within 10 feet. We sat there and started talking. And the story was very sad. He said that, "I know you because I had been around and I'd worked with his cousin," and said that my wife was doing her PhD at the University of Dar es Salaam, had worked for quite some time, and then suddenly, while she was doing her PhD, she suddenly died, leaving behind the husband, bereaved, and 5 children, all now can see grown up. And we seem as if we have lost everything. Can we do something about it? I said, "Well, I have not seen what she had done, so I really cannot say. But if you bring what she has done, I'll certainly read it and give you an opinion." So the next day, I think almost, they were there, he and one of the daughters. And what they came with are all that she had been writing, several chapters that she had been working on at the same time, with a huge bibliography as well. So she was really quite advanced in her work. I read through, and according to her own list, she had written in her notes the 2 chapters in which she wrote beside it, "Sana Sana," which means very much. And I interpreted that was that she had worked the most on those 2 chapters. And I felt also, I agreed with her, that these were the best chapters that she had gone the farthest. The others were much more at earlier stages. But later on, when I saw her name and searched, suddenly I found actually that I had another paper that she had written and submitted at a conference, which was on Zanzibar doors. And so I read that, and that was, of course, in a much more finished. So now there were 3 chapters that were presentable which minor editing and so on. So, but I said I should get a second opinion. So I asked the husband, and I should say, I would have said, unfortunately, he is not able to be with us. But that would be a wrong word, because he has just gone to do his Hajj. And Hajj cannot be unfortunate. So very fortunately, he is doing his Hajj right now. But all the 4 daughters insisted on coming and being here with us. So I asked the permission from them, can I show it to somebody else to give me a second opinion? And fortunately at that time, we had Janet Purdy, who was doing her PhD here on Zanzibar doors from the University of Chicago. And so I asked her to read through the same way, and she came with the same conclusion, that those 3 chapters can be published. The others are in a more earlier stages. But she came with an additional idea, that even those that have not been completed, they still would be useful to other researchers, her notes and her extensive bibliography as well. So if we could put them online, and then we put a message that these are the notes of this lady, and people would acknowledge her. But in the meantime, we go ahead with the printing of these 3 chapters as a small book. And I really had in my mind printing it very, very cheaply to sell, with a few thousand shillings to tourists and so on. But once we started going through, myself and Janet, who unfortunately cannot be here, we felt that maybe the book deserves something better. We can put more illustrations to explain what she's talking about. And then we could probably publish a more bigger book. And then, the family was very enthusiastic, the husband particularly, and enthusiasm really overflows onto me and Janet and everybody else. So we said, yes, let us go ahead. So now that book has been printed and became available only a few days ago. We wanted to have an occasion to launch it so that people know about it. But I should say a little bit, I don't want to talk too much now today. I've already talked enough, I think. To say something about why I felt the book is worth making it available. I have been working on the history and architecture of Zanzibar for quite some time. I've been reading about it, been taking people on guided tours and things like this. But I learned something even more from what she had written. And one particular one, you'll see, from the book here, you will not be able to see, but the cover itself. Because she's writing about Swahili residential house. What is it like and why? Why is it planned particularly in a particular kind of way? One thing is that this population in Zanzibar has been Islamic for 1,000 years now. We even have some mosques going back to the 11th century, 12th century, and there is evidence of Islam even before that. So this is a long-established Islamic Swahili culture. So even the culture exhibits that, the houses would exhibit that thing. One particular thing that I learned from her that I had not actually occurred to me. Let me start with the beginning. When you go to a traditional Swahili house, of which unfortunately hardly any has survived in Zanzibar town, because it was a very old town already at the beginning of the 19th century, when Zanzibar flourished enormously. And so all the old houses were tended to be destroyed and replaced by new traditions of Swahili, Arab, Omani, Indian, all of them came up. And the Swahili typical architecture, there are very few examples left. One example one theme particularly that runs through the architecture is privacy of the household. That you can do anything with your house, but you must be clear about the privacy of the house. That is the most important thing to protect. That is one. The second one, and I think that's equally important, which is also true of Omani architecture, that you don't want to show off your wealth through your house. You don't want to decorate your house outside. And I had one practical example, even to understand that one. I can understand from listening sometimes to other people. I went to Morocco once for a wedding, actually. And we were staying in one of the local hotels. And the person who was a former civil servant, he built that house as a hospital, as a hotel. And since it is Morocco, used Moorish architecture, which is beautiful architecture, and I like it very much. We have some elements of it here in Zanzibar, in our museum, in our high court, and so on. Moorish architecture. So I thought that the Moorish architecture is so beautiful inside, and yet the house outside was plain. Completely plain. Even the doors were plain. So I was sitting with the owner, and I said, look, you have a beautiful architecture. Why don't you put it outside? And his answer was, look, I live in a neighborhood in which many of my neighbors are poor. If I decorate my house in a way, I will make them feel small. I don't want to do that. So I want to enjoy Moorish architecture, I do it inside. Outside, we're all the same. And then he added one other sentence. He said, I can afford meat every day, and I want to eat meat every day. He was well off enough. But my neighbors eat vegetables 6 days of the week and buy meat once a week. So I want to buy meat every day. What do? I go to the market with the same basket as everybody else. I buy the meat very quickly, early, and put it right at the bottom. Then fill it up with vegetables, so that when we all go home, we all appear to be the same. I thought this kind of element, cultural aspect of our architecture is, in some way, I won't say unique. I think it is true even of Omani houses here. Omani houses, you'll see Omani houses, very imposing, big ones, and look massive in some ways. But you look, it's otherwise very, very plain on the outside. There's not really much decoration outside. Okay, so that in some ways can be reflected here in Swahili culture as well. Modesty on the outside, whatever you do inside. Inside you cannot be stopped if you want to splurge. But that was like, so that is one part. The second aspect of Swahili culture is privacy, as I said, of the household, particularly the women, but household in general. And there, the Swahili house in Lamu has it in its architecture. You have an entrance to the house. And so it is an entrance, and there is an example. There's a picture on the cover of this one, that you enter some kind of an alcove inside the house. On one side, it is open to the street. As soon as you enter that alcove, on both sides there are benches. That is where the owner will sit to receive his guests, even his close friends. They will come and sit there and have a cup of coffee and talk. And then on the side, there will be a door to go inside. And it is on the side so that when it is opened, people from the street don't see inside the house. I mean, even that one, they thought through that way. That you do not want to expose. You open the door and you can see the rest of the house inside. Now, this example that we have put here, it has been changed. And you see that, in fact, that wall there is the one that has been broken and a big door has been opened. So that aspect has been lost. But in Lamu, you will have to go that way on the side. And then throughout the house, in Swahili house, from the entrance all the way to the end, you can put the decorations. But again, something else you find in Swahili houses, that you go through open courtyard where people can cook and wash and whatever. And then you go to the bedroom areas. You start with the children's to start with, and then the girls of the house, and then the master bedroom right at the back. Even in decoration of the walls, which are very elaborate decoration in the wall itself, which is typically Swahili, you start with limited decoration, and it gets more and more and more ornate when you approach the master bedroom at the back. The message is still the same. You can enjoy your whatever pleasure that you have, but don't embarrass others. And I thought this is a good lesson from Swahili culture particularly, that you can say it's an older one here, that is retained. Now, all that I explained to try to introduce what she has done, which I did not know myself. Quite frankly. When I started reading it, she said that here the town, the houses next to each other now, really piling on each other. Very narrow streets everywhere. Now, there is somebody has a house here, has a door, and the other person opposite has another door there. And if I have my door here and his door is right there, as soon as he opens that door, I can see right inside. And she pointed out that they are very careful about that one. That if I have put my door here, they will put their door there. So each one still has privacy inside. And that goes through even the windows. If they have a window on one side, you don't put your window there, so that you give them privacy, and you put the window on the other side. And I think this kind of living together with neighbors. Now, in Quran, for example, we are always sort of told, be careful about your neighbors. Treat them like you treat your relatives. And the neighborhood is defined. 40 houses around your house. You have to respect them like your cousins and brothers. That kind of thing. So to live in a neighborhood is really part of the architecture of Zanzibar as well. And this is sort of how it is operationalized in architecture becomes very important. Sometimes we're not always, like now you find that with modernization, in comparison, when you look at Western houses, you find the houses, it's the same windows looking into each other and so on. And they don't seem to care. You paint your glasses if you don't want to be seen. So I think this is why I think I felt it was worth making this available to the public here in Zanzibar, and I'm glad we succeeded. So, but when we were doing this, all this, the daughters particularly insisted that they want to come themselves, of course, to this occasion here, but they want to speak on behalf of the family. And it is the youngest who said, I am going to be that one. So let me call her. Let me call her now. And your name is Maimuna, right? Or did I get it right? Maimina. No, Ruhaina. Muhaimina. Some of these names are really. Yes. So, and I really said, when the youngest said, I am the one who's got to speak, I said, yes. Welcome. Karibu. Na kama unataka kusema Kiswahili unaweza kusema vile vile. No, I think she'll read it. Oh, you need this? You need this? Huh?
Your Excellency, Madam Hur Al-Qasimi, President, Africa Institute, Professor Salah Hassan, Director, Africa Institute, Professor Abdul Sharif from Zanzibar, editor of the book of the late Mrs. Mwanahamis, Hamad Nassor, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I am standing here on behalf of the family to give you the message from the family of the late Mrs. Mwanahamis, Hamad Nassor, who is the author of the book which is being launched today. Besides the endless sadness for our dear departed mother, we are very happy to see that the book of our dear mother is being launched here at this conference today. Therefore, we would like to express our sincere appreciation to Dr. E. Casey and Dr. N. Logwa, supervisors of the late Mrs. Mwanahamis, University of Dar es Salaam, as well as State University of Zanzibar, for their permission to the late Mrs. Mwanahamis to study and for their other contribution. The editor has used a lot of time in tailoring the work of the late Mrs. Mwanahamis. They deserve our thanks. Our sincere appreciation must go to Professor Abdul Sharif from Zanzibar and Dr. Janet M. Purdy from USA for their editing the work of the late Mrs. Mwanahamis until the book was completed. We hope will be useful to historians, scholars, researchers, colleges, and universities. We say thank you very much indeed for their kindness. Thank you all for listening.
Well, I'm not going to speak too much now. I think I've done enough. Now, actually, what is left is only that they would like to make a presentation of the book. And so we had they wanted, we all thought that Sheikh Hur will be here as well. So they wanted to present one book to her. And also, at my suggestion, I suggested that we should also send one book to her father, the ruler of Sharjah, because he himself has been supportive of Zanzibar itself and was very proud in 1993 to come all the way to Zanzibar to inaugurate a conference that we were organizing here in Zanzibar in 1993. He came all the way here. So, and as you know, and I've seen myself when I was in Sharjah, he has a huge library that he has built up. He's really a scholar. And something else that many of you may not know is that He, as a ruler of Sharjah, himself came all the way to Zanzibar to do research in the Zanzibar archives. Now, I do not know of any other ruler who has come to do research in the archives himself, but him I know that he did come here. He's such a scholar. So they wanted to present a book both to Sheikh Hur as well as to her father. And if Salah is not here, oh, you are here. Then I do not know, because, oh, maybe my glasses are, yes. So they were going,
Deliver anything, I'm happy to do.
yes. So these are for you to deliver there to the president and the ruler. And there was one to present to you in particular, yes. And oh yes, and there is one, and that was again my suggestion though.
The library.
To the library of the African Institute. Because I have taken advantage of that library. It is still very early stages, but they were still very the books that I needed, or they were able to obtain for me and do research. So I felt that, and that particular volume is actually my gift to the library, myself personally. So I think that is sort of briefly what would I to say. The rest is that the books that have been printed, and let me show you what it looks like. It is, I'm glad to say, quite nicely produced with that doorway that I mentioned. They decided, the family with the father, that they will sell it as cheaply as possible to recover the cost, not to make profit. So they have fixed the price of either $15 in dollars. For Zanzibaris, we kept it, they kept it at 25,000 shillings. So people should not say, they're not quite the same. But we're favoring Zanzibaris so that they can buy if. Otherwise, I finished, I think, my share of the task.
I just say,
yes.
I just wanted to say a word.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. I really want to thank you for really, taking over this project and seeing it to its fruition. But I also want to thank the family, all the daughters that are here, for really coming, for honoring us with this celebration. As I was listening to you, the youngest daughter,
yes.
As I was listening to your speech, I said to the person sitting next to me Saturday, I said, وَنِعْمَ التَّرْبِيَةِ, which is in translation, blessed upbringing. So definitely that's what you are. Thank you so much.
I'm finished now. Please come in to collect.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
We actually have a few minutes.
Yes.
And Professor Abdul Sharif has agreed to take some questions. So I'd like to open the floor for at least a few questions. Maybe we can take 3 questions related to the book, the project, and the research. Yeah, please.
Maybe this is not question to Professor Sharif, but to the family. Could you tell me this? How did your mother got interested into this kind of stone town architecture? Could you, if you know, could you tell us? Could you share us some episode?
Mama ameingia kwenye research hii. Kama nitakujibu kama hamwezi, mimi nitajibia. I said, well, they cannot answer it fully. Of course, I offer them that I will do. Well, she, as a student who went through the Zanzibar University here, completed here, went and did her master's in Dar es Salaam and completed it, and then got interested in archaeology. So she joined actually the archaeological department, but there archaeology is sort of more broad, allowed her to do with that kind of research. But initially she had done actually even archaeological digging, excavations she has been involved in. She was involved in one of the early sites at Unguyoku and elsewhere. So she had done this, but she ended up choosing to write on a subject which is much more recent, Zanzibar town itself. And I'm glad she did that. I mean, of course, the archaeology is also good, but there are quite a few people who have done work there. So I'm glad that she had chosen to do on Zanzibar, because we still do not know as much ourselves. I mean, everybody here in Zanzibar will tell you, Abdul Sharif knows everything about Zanzibar. That's not true. That's not true. Because I'm still learning. Even I learned from this reading. There's no end to this kind of learning. But she came actually with her own experience, her own culture as well. Because their family comes from Pemba. And so they expressed some of the feelings and emotions and their perceptions of society in a particular kind of way, probably more than that we, more townspeople, might be doing. Yes.
Hello. I really enjoyed this book launch, and I was thinking this question is to Professor Sharif. That this work for me is, I think it's one in a long tradition of works before that I've looked at architectural styles in the Swahili town, and then deriving from that sort of social cultural themes. From in Lamu, for example, Janet Bujra, Hamid Zain, James De Vere Allen, Swahili origins, have all looked at these architectural styles along the East African coast. And in this particular one, I think the theme that was very clear was this idea of Kiswahili, I think I'd say, kutojionyesha,
not to show off.
Not to show off, yes. And do you find that this particular concern in not only architectural styles, but also in poetry, Swahili poetry, dance, music, and other forms of cultural expression? Are there similar examples?
Well, actually, quite frankly, since I'm not a poet and I don't write poetry, I have actually, quite frankly, have not asked myself that way. But what I would expect, that what Mwanahamis, the late Mwanahamis, has done in architecture, it is a reflection of the same culture. That, in fact, you go through the streets of Zanzibar here, there will be some rich people and there will be some poor people. And you will see them walking around and greeting each other, and you will not be able to tell immediately that there is a big... and when a person actually comes and begins to behave like that one, that he's so rich, he's frowned upon by everybody, including by his friends sometimes, because it is not Uswahili, not the Swahili. So I would expect, although I'm not a poet to judge it, I would expect that the same attitude will appear in the music and the writings, and the normal behavior. For example, there is Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam for everybody. Hakuna your lordship, hapana. What is Assalamu alaikum? Kweli, ya Sayyidina, very often that would come in, particularly with the descendants of the Prophet, they will be given a special one. The special treatment that you would get is if you are a teacher. If you are a teacher, you will be respected. The word would be mualimu. Mualimu to mualim. Now that mualim can be a secondary school, primary school, university. Even me, here now I'm called professor when I walk around the streets, as you have noticed. But many of the others would just say mualimu. And for us, I mean, just the use of that mualimu itself has already recognized your education. That recognition is there. But then they don't like to go into sort of the minor details, the differences between the two. This one is more respectable than others, and so on. And quite often these days, when they used to say Sharif, that I mean that's something, another species, it seems as if. But mualimu is probably the best thing you could say as a title of respect for any person. And of course, the lady who died also, I mean, in her writing would be mualimu, without any distinction between men and women either. So Kiswahili was even more advanced than English in that sense. There is only mualimu. Of course, in Arabic there is mualima. Yes.
Hi. I just had a question. I mean, it's a question that I was wondering about, but also we had a few people watching on YouTube through the live stream. Where can they buy the book internationally?
Internationally, I don't think we have, because this book was printed and issued not by any established publisher. So the best thing would be to contact me or one of them, and they have the books. So, but internationally, we have not really gone that far because it would have been complicated to know. And they just were in a hurry for the book to come out. As it is, it has taken some time to come out. But if anybody wants, then probably to contact me, and we'll make arrangement. Of course, there is a postage and so on. We can send it by post. And I'm told these days postal service is reliable. In the past, there was a problem sometimes. But people who want to buy it, I do not know whether they actually brought.
Janet has just mentioned on YouTube that there's a digital version coming up.
What?
Janet just messaged on our YouTube channel saying there's a digital version of the book that will be released for those who want to acquire it internationally.
It will be released? That's news. But this is
well,
news to me.
Thank you,
but
Janet.
It may, but in other words, actually, because she's an equal partner, she has a suggestion that maybe we could make it available. But what she did offer was really to put it online, the other material, not the book itself. Because the book itself, if it is going to be sold online like this one, it'll be a bit complicated about payment and so on, and we had not really thought about it. We were thinking immediately for the book to come out here. We were more interested in starting here. But we could certainly consider how we can satisfy if there is any demand from outside, and I'm prepared to help in any way I can.
Well, we have a bit of time, so we can take another question.
Thank you. It's very inspiring to see how much you love your mother and loved her as an intellectual as well. And for all of us, I think, in the room, this idea of reaching for an audience here which will be interested in the work of a historian and a scholar from Zanzibar, this seems to me ideal for intellectuals to be doing. And I wonder if this is a once-off initiative or project, or are there other avenues for scholars to reach audiences here in Zanzibar and more broadly in Tanzania and East Africa? And, university publishing seems to be so inaccessible for most scholars, and reaching African audiences is so hard for us across our borders. I wonder what your experience is of reaching this intellectual audience, this hungry audience.
Well, I think, I should say immediately, I think at my age, I do not want to undertake a lot of work on a continuous scale because I want to rest. So this was, for me, it was just one-off. Fortunately, in Zanzibar, we don't have a good printer or publisher. But in Dar es Salaam, there is a publisher who is well established, and Salah know him, Professor Salah knows him very well. And he, of course, now gets the books printed, and then there will be a supply outside. But sometimes the process of publishing through a regular publisher, there will be certain standards that will have to be maintained at a certain level, and then the price will go up as well, because there are a lot of in-between people who are involved. So we have a Tanzanian publisher who has worked on African books for 30, 40 years probably, and we are on good terms. There definitely would be one. In this case, it was a voluntary kind of work on my part as an individual, because I was asked, and with the kind of material there, I felt I could help, but it may not be easy to do it on a larger scale. For example, can be exhausting in some way. But I think actually, I do not want to to brag about it, but I think all scholars who have studied in Zanzibar and so on, who have achieved something, as I felt actually that I have a duty to pay back. I did go through the school in Zanzibar. I was raised, what I am is Zanzibar itself. So I have a duty to do it. And it was only on that basis that I undertook to do it. I didn't think it will reach this stage, which is much better than I had expected. So I'm happy that I have done it. But I want to encourage, because these days at least, like the late lady, if she had been able to complete, she would have been able to do a PhD. There are some other, in fact, one of her friends who has a PhD already, but she could not come here today. But otherwise, she was a very close friend who got her PhD from Germany. There are some others who are in the universities. So I think the idea of what has been done here, if it is spread among all of us, our own people, that to take up that kind of commitment to help the others and to encourage people to do research themselves. The fact that they are doing that research themselves and they're coming out, not only research in the archives, because a lot of what she wrote comes from her hearing and listening to the people, oral information. Yeah.
So, well, thank you. Okay. So thank you very much, Professor Abdul Sharif, and thank you to the members of the family. Thank you.